The muscles of the forearm are divided into two compartments. Into anterior compartment, where the flexors are positioned, and the posterior and lateral compartment, where the extensor muscles are positioned. We are going to begin with the anterior compartment. The anterior compartment of the forearm consists of few mostly flexor muscles, which are organized into two layers, into superficial layer and the deep layer. The superficial layer of the anterior compartment of the forearm consists of a few mostly flexor muscles originating on the medial epicondyle of the humerus. First among them, easy recognizable, is the pronator teres muscle. The pronator teres muscle inserts onto the lateral aspect of the mid-radius. Next to it, there is a longer muscle, which is on the radial side of the forearm, so you can orientate yourself by the thumb. So this is the flexor carpi radialis, which inserts onto the basis of the second metacarpal bone. The third one is this muscle with really long tendon. Here it is. It is called the palmaris longus muscle because it inserts onto the palm, onto the palmar aponeurosis. The most medially positioned muscle of the superficial layer is the flexor carpi ulnaris, and it has two heads. With its humeral head, it originates on the medial epicondyle of the humerus, and with its ulnar head, it originates on the upper 2/3 of posterior border of the ulna. The insertion of the flexor carpi ulnaris is on the pisiform bone. So, a bit deeper, also in the superficial layer, lies the flexor digitorum superficialis, which also has two heads. The humeral ulnar head originates from the medial epicondyle of the humerus, and the radial head, which originates from the anterior border of the radius. Distally, the insertion is on the middle phalanx of the second, third, fourth, and fifth digit. To see the deep group of the forearm, we have to put the superficial layer aside. Okay, and now we can see all three muscles of the deep group of the anterior compartment. The muscle with multiple tendons, pearly, whitish tendons, is the flexor digitorum profundus. More laterally towards the thumb lies its flexor, the flexor pollicis longus, which has the shape as a feather. And the third one is in the distal part of the forearm, here. And it is the pronator quadratus. These three muscles originate on the surfaces of the radius and ulna. The insertion of the flexor digitorum profundus is on the basis of the distal phalanges of second, third, fourth, and fifth digit. The insertion of the flexor pollicis longus is on the distal phalanx of the thumb, and the pronator quadratus, it doesn't leave the forearm, so it originates on the anterior surface of the ulna in its distal quarter, and its insertion is onto the distal quarter of the anterior surface of the radius. So it doesn't leave the forearm. We are looking at the posterior and lateral compartment of the forearm, and it is organized into three groups or portions. The lateral group, the superficial posterior group, and below it the posterior deep group. In the lateral group of posterior and lateral compartment, there are three muscles: the brachioradialis muscle, the extensor carpi radialis longus, and extensor carpi radialis brevis. The brachioradialis muscle originates on the upper two-thirds of the lateral ridge of the humerus. It extends over the forearm and inserts here onto the styloid process of the radius. The second one, the extensor carpi radialis longus, originates below the origin point of brachioradialis, so originates on the lower one-third of the lateral ridge of the humerus, and it inserts on the dorsal surface of the second metacarpal bone. For homework, remember which muscle inserts on the anterior surface of the second metacarpal bone. And the third muscle of lateral group is the extensor carpi radialis brevis, the short one, which originates on the lateral epicondyle of humerus, and it inserts on the dorsal surface of the third metacarpal bone. The posterior superficial group consists of a muscle originating on the lateral epicondyle of humerus, and by its function, they are all extensor muscles. First, the biggest among them is the extensor digitorum, whose multiple tendons project towards the second, third, fourth, and fifth digit. So its insertion is on the dorsal surface of phalanges of these four digits. Next to it, you can see a lonely, isolated tendon whose muscle body is the same as the body of the extensor digitorum. So this separatist is the extensor digiti minimi, which insertion is on the all phalanges of the fifth digit. So here is the fifth digit. So this is the ulnar side, and this muscle has to be called the extensor carpi ulnaris. It has two heads, the humeral head, originating, of course, on the lateral epicondyle of humerus, and ulnar head, originating on the posterior border of ulna. Insertion of the extensor carpi ulnaris is on the base of the fifth metacarpal bone. And the last muscle in this group is the anconeus. The anconeus originates also on the lateral epicondyle of the humerus, as all of them do, and it inserts on the posterior surface of the ulna. The posterior deep group of the forearm can be seen in the distal part of the forearm because it is covered by the superficial group proximally. There are 5 muscles in this group and they originate on the dorsal surface of the radius and ulna. 3 out of 5 muscles in the posterior deep group belong to the thumb. We're going to look them closer. And if this is the thumb, these are those 3 muscles. The first one goes more laterally, and when it contracts, it will move the thumb to the lateral side, so it abducts the thumb. It is the abductor pollicis longus. The other 2 muscles are positioned more dorsally, so they will move the thumb toward the posterior compartment of the forearm. Actually, they will extend it, so they are extensors. The extensor pollicis brevis and the extensor pollicis longus. What are the insertion points of these 3 muscles for the thumb? They insert as a scale. So the first one, the abductor pollicis longus, it inserts on the base of the first metacarpal bone. The extensor pollicis brevis inserts on the base of the proximal phalanx on the thumb, and the extensor pollicis longus, it goes to the base of the second phalanx of the thumb, where its insertion point is. Beside those 3 thumb muscles, in the posterior deep group, there is also a muscle for the index finger called the extensor indicis. The extensor indicis inserts, of course, onto the phalanges of the index finger. And the last muscle in this group is this muscle here, called the supinator. The supinator originates on the lateral epicondyle of the humerus, and it inserts onto the lateral aspect of the mid radius. Muscles of the hand are divided into 3 groups, into muscles for thumb, muscles for little finger, and central palm space muscles. Muscles for thumb are called the thenar muscles. Those for little finger are positioned medially and they are called the hypothenar muscles. And the central palm space muscles are organized into 3 layers. The most superficial layer consists of 4 lumbricals, and when we put them aside, we can see 2 deeper layers, which are formed of 3 palmar interosseous muscles and deeper 4 dorsal interosseous muscles.